Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. It is time for another show. It is a post-election Wednesday, and it has been a long time since we have been able to do a post-election Wednesday without some sort of anti-nausea medication. So this is a welcome change, and what a change it is. Greg Dworkin and I have been on the show for about 9 hours this morning already. We had an extensive pregame discussion, so we're raring to go. There's lots to cover. I think you know this already. If you're just waking up to the results, congratulations. You got a great night's sleep. Even people, Greg was telling me he was up all night watching returns for the first time in a long time, not because we were plotting, do we need to flee the country, or, oh my God, how do I explain this, or what are we going to tell people, but rather, I can't wait to tell people, but you already know, because you didn't even have to stay up that late and get the fantastic results in a lot of these races. And not just the East Coast races either. I did notice that they were calling it on Prop 50 in California the minute their polls closed. So you didn't even have to wait all that long for that result. Results everywhere. And I guess the close of a political era. It occurred to me I saw it happen, of course, and we've been seeing it happen for weeks now. I guess the end of the Cuomo political dynasty, I hope, although, I thought the end of the Trump political thing was 2020, but it turned out not to be the case. So you never know. I mean, I guess the fact that he was standing for elective office after having resigned the governorship in disgrace should tell you there's no definitive ending point to these things. But I was just sort of thinking about way back when, I was pretty young when Mario Cuomo was a thing, but of course he was a big thing. And it just sort of struck me that for the Cuomo political dynasty to end with Cuomo's being grab-ass Republicans seemed like a little far-fetched in the 1984 era, let's say. But that's where we are. Look, soundly defeated. Somehow flabbergasting to some still significant portion of New Yorkers, but not significant enough to mean anything, that's for sure. So I thought that was kind of weird. I was wondering, after thinking about what he had been accused of all along, why no one was calling him Prince Andrew Cuomo, given that he was, the scion of a political dynasty, or of a dynasty of some kind anyway. But of course now he would just be Andrew Mountbatten Windsor Cuomo anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter anymore. And we've missed the window on the joke on that one, but that's okay. So, as I mentioned, lots of results, and I mean from every corner of the country, and every corner of the country as well, like down to the county here in Virginia. And no way better to hear more about my home, it is my home state, even though it's a Commonwealth of Virginia, than by talking to Greg, because he keeps bringing it up all the time. And we need something like super good on this one today, I guess. And golly, I'm going to have to, maybe I go with one of the newsy sounding but exciting fanfares. It just needs to be more fanfare for today. Maybe the majestic fanfare. Woo! Sounds like the end of a dynasty there, sort of. Hang on, Greg, there's only 5 more seconds. All right. I mean, I think it's justified today. Good morning, Greg. How you doing?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, yeah. I remembered to unmute. That is so cool.
Okay, great.
I'm going to take a nap after the show, but I'm glad I remembered that 17 buttons to push to get this thing started.
All right. Well, okay. So not much happening, really.
Yeah, not really.
Sound low-key
so look,
now.
let me give you some results, and then I'll give you the super abbreviated interpretation of all of it, and then we'll delve into the details.
All right.
But let's start with your home state. Beavis and Butthead. He said state. Virginia election results in the Commonwealth. The great Commonwealth of Virginia. Governor Abigail Spanberger, 57.5. Winsome Earl Sears, 42.
Yeah, she stinks. Boo.
15 points.
Yeah.
You may remember on the show I said, look, Spanberger's got to get 11 points or more, because if she gets more than 11 points, she's going to pull Jay Jones over the finish line.
Yes.
Right. Jay Jones, 53.1. Jason Miyares, 46.5.
Yes.
Goodbye, Trump lover.
I was told it was going to be close. And for a little while it was, like right in the beginning when they had counted 1% of the vote.
Yeah, right in the beginning when they counted Southwest Virginia. Right. He was tied.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He was never ahead by more than a point.
Okay.
And how do you feel this morning, Atlas Intel and all the other pollsters?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
They were mostly right. They just got the direction right, but the amount wrong a lot.
All right.
And I got to throw in here, by the way, as far as Virginia goes, Lieutenant Governor Ghazala Hashmi, 55.6. John Reed, 44.2. I'm thinking Glenn Youngkin's macaca speech didn't do it for her.
Yeah, it didn't help much.
He wasn't
wearing the vest.
That's probably the problem.
Yeah, I should have.
So a few observations about Virginia.
All right.
Okay. But I'll start with Brian Schatz as we go around the rest of the country, because I think he got it right. Brian Schatz, who is senator from the great state of Hawaii.
Yes.
Says, I can save you a dozen hours of podcast listening. People are pissed about high prices and corruption. Okay, you can turn off the show. That's what's going on here.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. So Ron Brownstein writes, the most important question New Jersey and Virginia and even California voters will answer is whether the shift away from Trump among Black and Hispanic voters, which is roughly evident in all major polls, translates into Democratic candidates pushing back the advances he made. And the answer on Tuesday is,
Yeah, by a lot.
For exits, Chitterelli wins only 31% of Hispanics, 5% of Blacks. Earl Sears is 34.8. After non-college minorities were held up as Exhibit A of ostensible Trump realignment, Spanberger wins 84% of them, Sherrill 76.
Wow. Jeez. All right.
Okay. And Brownstein makes another bigger point, and then I want to make 2 points, and I hope I remember them both because I'm tired. Ronald Brownstein says to Wolf Blitzer, I said closer the Democrats get to winning 90% of voters who disapprove of Trump, the more ominous the signal would be for the GOP in 26. The exits now show Democrats winning 92% of Trump disapprovers in Virginia, 91% in New Jersey, 91% on Prop 50. Democrats won 90% of Trump disapprovers in 18, and they had a wave. It was like 44 wins for them in the House.
Yes.
Pickups. So, it's a big deal. And again, first of all, and I get this feedback all the time, why do you keep telling us about polls that show Trump is unpopular? What difference does it make? I don't feel it. Look at these ICE things. BFD, what's going on? It doesn't. Yesterday was your answer.
Yeah,
it matters all over the country. Small towns, big, everywhere. Every single county in Virginia, including the Appalachian ones in the southwest corner, southwest tail, whatever you want to call it. It's not really shaped, so you can call it a corner.
If you like.
But the southwest part of Virginia, the red part, stayed red.
Yeah. I mean,
but
it wasn't
every single county in Virginia moved to the Democrats somewhat compared to where they were in 2024.
Yes, I think I saw
every single county without fail.
Everywhere. Right. Even in these places that are, oh my God, it went 75% for the Republicans. Yeah, and that's the point is it went 80% for them last time. And if you think that doesn't really matter that much, the 5% shift everywhere, well, there's a lot of repecutions. I don't want to interrupt your flow here, but we'll come back to this, I think. But,
well, there is no flow.
Oh, okay. Well, in this case, I will say I'll have to scroll and see if I can find it.
This is an open thread, folks.
Okay, yeah. But somebody was pointing out, if you are a Republican strategist who has been scheming to spread out the Republicans in your state in a decade redistricting, and maybe you've got a plus 15, a plus 20 Republican district somewhere, and you think, well, I could slice and dice that a little bit, and I can create 3 adjacent Republican districts that are all plus 5 or so in voter preference. And you're now seeing, hey, everywhere, even in the strongest Republican strongholds, strongly strong strongholds that they have, there's a 5% shift toward Democrats there. If you are counting on that plus 5% to net you extra seats, you may lose, and you may lose all 3 of those things. You might end up taking a sure thing Republican district and chopping it up into 3 lean Republicans, and you lean as a loser. And all right, rethink that. You may be doing the wrong thing. Maybe go ahead. Maybe I dare you to redistrict as aggressively as possible.
So Josh Kraushaar, a conservative who I think he's at the Jewish Insider now, but he's been all over the place. He was at National Journal. He was at Axios. I've known him over the years. He's, although conservative-leaning, he's a pretty honest analyst in the sense that if you give him facts, he'll change his mind.
Okay.
And so that's not
that's good.
Common.
Right. We
so
want
it is
that,
good.
though.
And Kraushaar writes this regarding Hispanic votes, swinging back to Democrats. Texas GOPers looking at the results last night should not feel great about basing their hopes or flipping redrawn South Texas CDs, congressional districts, on Trump's 2024 Latino performance. And Josh writes, we may be hearing a lot more about the word gerrymander after the Texas GOP partisan gerrymander in Texas. I've heard the word before. I've forgotten about it. But remember, now, that's what happens when you bring it up and you really screw up.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of screwing up and speaking of what you brought in, my first reaction this morning is people are going to ask Mike Johnson about the election results, and he's going to say, I haven't heard it. I haven't seen it. What's going on?
What do you mean? I haven't seen that video.
But he can't avoid it because here's what Trump just told Senate Republicans last night. Trump thinks last night was bad for Republicans and thinks the government has to open immediately.
Oh.
And he seems to believe the bad election results are directly related to 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
The shutdown and that he wasn't on the ballot. The big doofus doesn't understand. He was on every goddamn ballot across the country.
No kidding.
In towns small and large, and he lost everything. I'll tell you about Connecticut in a minute. But
it's definitely
remember,
true.
People were saying, what are Democrats doing? We know they're going to fold. Oh, they're going to fold. They're going to fold. They always fold. They're going to fold. Okay, they're going to fold as soon as this happens. Okay, they're going to fold as soon as that happens. Okay, they're going to fold as soon as troops don't get paid. Oh, they're going to fold as soon as SNAP comes. Well, they'll fold after this. They'll fold after the election.
Yeah. They were even trying to say it yesterday.
Republicans, they are responsible for the loss. Trump is telling Republicans, you guys failed.
Yeah, nice. He might not even be wrong for once.
Got to be from him because they won't listen to us.
Right, true. By the way, credit for that comment about the gerrymandering. Robert McNeese, a professor and physicist, actually. Not a political science professor, but a good observation there on Blue Sky. Robert McNeese. So if you're looking for him. But yes, he was on the ballot, and he was on the ballot everywhere. And although it would never have surprised anybody listening to the show that I would say such a thing in the end, when we talked about the elections and I was heading out to do the early voting, and we were talking about the attorney general race.
Yeah.
And I just, flatly said, I've read what Jones is accused of saying. I've read the emails. Not great. There's an explanation for some of them, but some of them I still haven't explained. They're actually, at face value, hey, that's not good. I don't want any of that going on in this party. But when I told you what we were doing, it was like, look, there's no margin for voting for a Trump Republican in this case, even if it wasn't such an important race as Attorney General, and all the reasons you told me and told the audience why it was important that Virginia, a blue state now, I think pretty solidly, should have a blue attorney general and why it was necessary. And you know what? I'm ignoring everything. The only thing I'm doing in this race is if it's a dagger at the Trump Republicans, I'm throwing it. That's it. I don't care.
And guess what? That happened
Everybody
everywhere.
else thought so too.
Yes. Kevin Robillard from HuffPost. The clearest sign I can find of Latinos abandoning the GOP after Trump's big gains in 2024 is Manassas Park, Virginia. A city of 17,000 people with a 46% Latino plurality. Harris won it by 20. Spanberger is winning it by 42.
Mm-hmm. You bet. I mean, it's...
Your thoughts?
Well, Manassas Park.
That's what they say on TV, right? They put a microphone in your face.
Yeah, that's right.
Your thoughts on this, please.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I have so many. And yesterday was very interesting for me on Blue Sky as a Loudoun County resident. Once again, having to fight the fight of the last gubernatorial election and the results and the actual ground truth in Loudoun County. The country came away with the impression, because they saw it on television, we were all very Trumpy in that sense. We saw on television there was protests at the school board. They're dragging out a father who says he's screaming because there was a trans student who wasn't a trans student who raped his daughter in the bathroom, and bathrooms and trans and yada, and moms for liberty and blah, blah, blah. But they came away with the impression that Loudoun County, because they then pointed out, why, Loudoun County is one of the wealthiest counties per capita, and all the wealth is somewhere else, I promise you. It's in the west of Loudoun, in horse country, or in .com country in this side on the east where I am. But there are a couple of like leftover AOL millionaires, plus Horsey set in the west. But wealthy means reactionary Republican, and look at this. And we're going to quote some people, and hey, they're moms for liberty activists. They are, by the way, Republican Capitol Hill staffers who live here because it's a bedroom community to D.C., and said, you can just list me as concerned parent. I work for the Republican leadership on Capitol Hill, but just put me down as concerned parent. And everybody said, well, that's what it's like. And that's where Trump's golf course is, and it must be red, 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 Trump, Trump, Trump. And although there was a huge issue, and Youngkin screamed about Loudoun County, Loudoun County, Loudoun County over and over again, and campaigned here, et cetera, the ground truth was Youngkin lost Loudoun County by double digits. Yes, the lowest possible double digits, but double digits, 11 points. But then, the quants pointed to, he should have lost Loudoun County by 20 points, as Republicans did in the previous election, and here he only lost by 11. So in combination with the southwest of Virginia, Youngkin is governor by a hair, but yes, he's governor. And last night, I'm still pushing back on people who are out there saying, well, I can't believe the results in Loudoun.
When Loudoun turned red, it was light pink,
yeah.
But hey,
It was never, it was not that it was never Republican. It was Republican when I moved here. And then since then, no.
You're old, so that was like,
Yeah, 30 years.
President Taft?
Right, exactly. But it was Republican, and it was reactionary Republican. And if anybody wants to look up who was like the local Republican leader here when I got here, his name is Eugene Delgaudio. And we've mentioned him on the show before. And look him up, and then
nice
look
guy,
at last
but no
night's
Mario
results.
Procaccino. You know what I'm saying?
He's not a nice guy, horrible guy, and good riddance to him. And now, ask around with the locals who've been here a while, like, can Eugene Delgaudio, is there a Eugene Delgaudio's Loudoun County left here? There is not. And it's a huge South Asian population, a very large Hispanic population, still mostly white. Manassas Park is only about half an hour away from here. They're in Prince William County, but there's a lot of movement between Eastern Loudoun and the Manassas Park area.
Hey, here's a factoid about Manassas Park.
All right.
I told you Spanberger won by 42 after Harris won by 20. Yeah. Jay Jones won by 34. The Democrats came home and said, I can't vote for Republicans. I need to send a message. Prince William County, 25% Hispanic. Harris was plus 18. Spanberger plus 33. Jones plus 25. We expected Spanberger to run stronger than Harris.
Yes.
We didn't expect Jones to run stronger than Harris.
That's probably true. But then, quite honestly, now in hindsight, maybe, I guess I should have thought of it earlier. But if you're asking around registered Latino voters, how are you feeling about law enforcement and its mechanisms and methods these days? And the answer is, get these Republicans out of my sight. They are chasing my kids on the way to school. They are hitting me over the head when I go to Home Depot to buy plumbing parts. I'm just fixing my toilet, man, in my own house. Why are you harassing me? What do I need papers for? Okay, I'll tell you what papers I have. Voting papers. Guess what's going to happen?
Right. Well, enough about Virginia. Let's talk about New Jersey.
All right. I lived there too.
Another state. Yeah, another state you know something about.
Yeah.
So,
what?
Would you have guessed that for most of the night, Mikey Sherrill was running ahead of Abigail Spanberger, who won by 15?
No, I probably would not have guessed that.
Turned out Sherrill won by 13. The reason that happened is a bit of an illusion. Unlike Virginia, in New Jersey, they count the early vote first.
Okay.
So when the early vote came in, and it was large, and it was largely for Sherrill, she was up by like 17 points.
Okay, yeah.
Well, the same day vote's going to come in, and same day votes, same day election votes, election day votes. They're always Republican. Democrats vote early, Republicans vote late. This is now part of everybody understands conventional wisdom. It's been true for a few years since the pandemic only. And it turned out Democrats outvoted Republicans on election day in New Jersey.
Hey.
And so she went from 17 to 13.
All right. Well,
big win. Nobody saw it coming. Jack Ciattarelli got crushed.
Well,
he got destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty amazing. And there were some pretty amazing findings from there as well. There was one county, very South Asian precinct in Edison, New Jersey.
Yes. Edison.
And this is the largest swing I've ever seen that I can remember, which is to say it may have been like 72 others, but I can't remember anything last week and beyond. A very South Asian precinct in Edison, New Jersey has swung from Trump plus 30 to Sherrill plus 76.
That's going to make him call fraud.
It's over 100-point swing. I've never seen that.
I don't know. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And we're not talking about
that being possible,
voting for Mamdani in this South Asian.
Right. They were just maybe excited by that idea. Oh, hey, what do you know?
And they're also very, very pissed at Republicans. They see what's going on with ICE.
Right.
They can put the dots together.
We could be in trouble here. And they have been. It's not like they haven't been rounding up South Asians, too, and sending them to Africa for some reason.
Plus economics. You can't take the economics out of it.
Yes.
But
you can't.
It's more than just that.
No.
It's simply more than just that.
Well, I was told it was just that. Once, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But now if you're rounding people, look, those ICE videos have been profoundly disturbing to a lot of people, and even people who think anyway that they are maybe not the target are certainly, they're watching these things saying, I could be clubbed over the head for taking this video nearby, and not that they're going to mistake me necessarily for somebody they came to arrest, but everybody's profoundly disturbed by these things. Any immigrant community and anybody who's in contact with them. It's no wonder you get swings like this.
You have to remember New Jersey and its history.
All right.
Okay.
How so?
And you know how Democrats can come close to winning in Ohio, but always fall short?
Yes.
That's what happens in New Jersey for Republicans. What happens is, they have the occasional win. Christy Todd Whitman was the only other female governor.
Right, true.
Mikey Sherrill's the first Democratic female governor. But in the run-up to the election, what was the conventional wisdom? Well, Sherrill's a weak candidate. Spanberger's making mistakes, Who are these women who think they can run like men?
Yeah.
Who are they?
The governors.
And it turns out they blew away everything. And part of the thing about Mikey Sherrill, she was disciplined. She stuck to message, but she was a woman, so she didn't get credit for running a very disciplined campaign. This ex-Navy person.
That ain't right. And by the way, also, I saw lots of stats, although I don't remember whether they were particular elections, but also the women, young women, not only, that's another thing. The Youngs showed up.
The Youngs showed up big time.
The Youngs showed up big time. The
Everywhere.
Young women were like 80% for candidates like Spanberger and Sherrill and others. They were quite serious and quite powerful in all that. And by the way, the most rock solid Democratic demographic there is, the black women voters, did the same thing they always do. They're not getting the top headlines because there was such an explosion everywhere else, but that only happens if you can build on the base that's always there. And by the way,
the Republicans are getting 5% of the vote, from them. Yes. So I mean, they're
Winston
not stupid,
Earl Sears
and they're very
thought
pragmatic.
she was going to change that, and it was, and so a lot of angry black women voters, not angry black women, but afterwards saying, yeah, by the way, just sort of, I saw some interesting and kind of acerbic comments like, you really thought you were going to be able to do a, oh, help me out, I'm a black woman struggling in a white man's world.
I am speaking.
Yeah, no, not going to happen.
I mean, that was a thing.
They
People
actually
were reporting this. Young women were leaving the voting
like
booth and saying to themselves, I am speaking, and then just laughing. This is like a TikTok thing.
Yeah, all right. I haven't seen those TikToks, but I'm sure they're coming.
They're hysterical. Okay. And again, why do I mention New Jersey? Just before the break, I have to throw this in. You can look at Virginia and say, wow, what a resounding win.
Wow,
but then again, Spanberger was running against the Washington Generals. What's the big deal? Well, the same thing happened in New Jersey and everywhere else.
Mm-hmm. And what can I tell you? The Republicans have a history of nominating the Washington Generals at critical moments, or nominating people who you wouldn't even think would be that bad, but then they get their candidate in a box thing and they say something super stupid. Right. Or maybe not even it was in the box. Right. I'm not a witch. Well, it's not legitimate rape. Like, oh, my God. Is that because you people are inherently unfit for office? Well, it's kind of looking that way, isn't it?
We got to mention New Hampshire, Georgia, Connecticut when we get back from the break.
Okay. There are several other states, by the way, as it turns out.
I thought there were only two.
Yeah, right. Well, the ones we were in.
New York City and Virginia.
Right. I'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. This is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com, secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show on the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. A huge swing towards listening to Kagro in the Morning last night, and I don't know, something. In every county in America, more people are listening to Kagro in the Morning than were yesterday. If there's one of you in that county, then that is definitely true. All right, big election night, still rounding things up. As it turns out, several other states also participated in this whole thing, and guess what? Just pretty much everywhere. There are a million other results to go by. I'll see what else, what's on the top of your radar, and I'll look at bolts because they got the radar everywhere. Big races, small races, sheriff's races. I don't know what came to me.
And DAs, they're really good at that.
Bucks County, Pennsylvania, chucked out a MAGA, ice-loving sheriff, as it was put to me this morning, for a brand new and progressive and young Democrat. It's happening everywhere.
Right, and since you mentioned Pennsylvania.
Sure, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania has some weird rules about their Supreme Court.
Right.
If you're a judge and you've been on the Supreme Court for 10 years, then you have to be subject. You don't get chucked out. There's no term limits in that sense.
Yeah.
There's what they call a retention
you should be thinking
election.
About this. Mm-hmm.
You have to run again and be, get the stamp of approval from voters if you're there for more than 10 years.
That's
so there were
sensible,
3 Democrats
actually.
up for retention.
Yes.
And the Republicans poured a ton of money in it because they want to be able to change the rules and prevent voting and make it so that if you didn't vote Republican, your ballot doesn't count and all this other stuff.
They're going to be doubly
And they lost big
interested
time,
now.
like they did everywhere else.
They did. And under normal circumstances, that would be taken as a sign. The voters are speaking. You should look at them and understand that your voter suppression efforts are not appreciated. However, I think that, the likely result with Trump at the head of the Republican Party is they say, well, you see how we got walloped, that it's now that much more important that we gerrymander, even if it's dummy mandering, send armed troops to polling places, shut down early voting, any kind of voter suppression we can do. We got to roll it out.
And if that doesn't work, we'll invade Poland.
I guess. Yeah. So, all right.
I mean, there's a precedent, so why not?
Sure.
Stephen Miller's into it.
Yes, that's true. Stephen Miller into it. How about that last minute Stephen Miller endorsement of Cuomo? I thought.
Well, we'll get to New York.
Helpful.
Well, we're going to leave that for a little bit.
Why? What happened there?
Well, people outside of New York think New Yorkers talk too much about New York.
That's true.
And I say, listen, everybody knows New York is the best place in the world to be from. As long as you're living somewhere else.
I guess that's possibly true. All right. Well, we continue on. Yes.
Aaron Jacobs, huge night for Democrats in New Hampshire. Democrats flip Rochester mayor, 8-point swing from Trump 24 win. Manchester Democrats sweep all 14 school board seats and retook control of the Board of Aldermen. Nashua Dems sweep school board, flip an alderman. Every Dem incumbent mayor won. Mm-hmm. And I have to tell you, the same thing happened in Connecticut. 169 towns, 169 elections, all municipal elections. Democrats swept the board pretty much up and down the state. Chris Murphy commented on it, started to list a partial list of towns that went from Republican to Democratic control. He ran out of space very quickly because just there were so many. In my own hometown, we threw out the Republican first selectman. I mean, I thought it was going to be a close race. The Democrat won by 10 points, and they won just about every other single position, including a very well-known, entrenched, and reasonably beloved, fair-minded town clerk who was a Republican, who was there forever, who's been very fair in elections. And she got thrown out because, it was a Democratic wave.
Yeah, Sorry, can't help you. You're signed up with the wrong party.
Exactly what happened. That's exactly right. New Hampshire,
all right.
Georgia, there is a public service commission. These are statewide races.
Yes.
There were 2 public service commission slots open. Democrats won them both by 60% to 40 to whatever, and these are the first Democratic statewide wins since 2006. Georgia.
Wow. All right. What? Is that right? In those offices or else?
No. I mean, where in Georgia do you have Democrats winning statewide? Not Senate.
Senate. Well,
not governor.
Why not Senate? Don't they hold both Senate seats?
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
How can that be right?
Except for them.
All right. Well, I think that stat may be wrong. But maybe on the state level,
No, we're talking state level.
Okay.
We're not talking about national offices. We're talking about state level.
I mean, there's 2 guys.
We don't count. We don't count the senators because they're national, really. But if you're talking about state office,
all right. Yeah, sure. But it is everywhere. I just random thing just came through on.
First time in 20 years, Democrats will hold those seats. The race entirely about utility prices. And Republicans paid a huge price for overseeing out-of-control price increases, according to Josh Schwerin, who's covering this.
I believe it. If it's anything like Virginia, which, probably, given, the demographics down there, everywhere really is happening. Data centers just being put up on every spare scrap of land and eating all the electricity and raising your rates.
Right.
Story's
All right,
been
so let's
waiting
talk
in
a
the
little bit
background.
about California and just mention
Those
California
guys again.
Proposition 50 election results. Right
You
now,
win.
it's 64 yes, 36 no. And it's going to be close to a 30-point win. That's why they were able to call it at Eastern Time 11:01.
Right. Crazy.
Right. The only race that was called quicker was Spamberger.
Yeah, it was very, very quick right off the bat. And, that's 2-1 out there. What can I tell you? You're going to get redistricted. And by the way, I was thinking last night also, some of these redistricting efforts, I think the California effort was, given a name of some kind, like a bill, and it had a name. But I think this is what prompted my thinking, is that a lot of these are tied to, or it says in the legislation that's been proposed, that there's a triggering event. We, Democrats in control of whatever state, will redistrict our state if the Republicans redistrict in Texas or elsewhere. And I'm thinking they should remove the trigger language at this point and just say everybody's ready for redistricting. And because some places are backing off, there are some Republican states that have been exhorted by Trump to redistrict and have been reticent about it or have actually
Kansas,
said no.
Indiana, there's a couple.
And we should basically at this point say Democrats want it to happen and it needs to happen, and don't worry about it not being reciprocal because it will already be reciprocal. Republicans have been redistricting mid-decade as well and gerrymandering their redistricting for a long time. There's already a ridiculous and unfair imbalance in representation in the House of Representatives as it is. You'd only be playing catch up at this point.
Well, it's a funny thing. Let me finish off on California and let's bring it back to Virginia.
Those guys again. Yeah.
All right. The county, there's results by county from the New York Times. The county that was most into it was San Francisco, yes, plus 68.
What? San Francisco values.
But the second San Francisco's valued county was Marin. Plus 61. Okay. Well,
what do I know about
county?
Marin?
What's so surprising about that? It's not surprising. I'm just trying to make a point here. You know who lives there?
I think movie stars.
Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi. Oh, okay.
You think Gavin Newsom?
I assume movie stars
is taking credit, and he is.
Yeah.
For this huge win and strategic move.
Okay.
This is Nancy Pelosi's retirement package present to herself. She is responsible for this happening.
Okay.
She pushed him. Like she always does, behind the scenes, but this is her baby, and this is what she's going to leave the country on retirement when she decides not to run again. And thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Goat.
I guess so. Like, that's a good closeout. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and the only reason it's not the crowning achievement is every other achievement.
I guess there is that. Right. You should give her a Nobel Peace Prize.
Right. She's tough. She's difficult. She doesn't always, do what we want, but boy, is she good at what she does.
Yeah.
Chuck Schumer should be getting counsel from her as to how to deal with this shutdown.
I don't know. Yeah, I haven't really heard.
And by the way, he should listen because he's probably already getting counsel from her. But this time he should listen.
Okay.
Stop telling me you don't know where you are. Here's the goddamn map.
Even as people were going to the polls in this massive blue wave yesterday, there were reports from the DC trade rags, naming names of supposed Senate Democrats who were, ready to cave. If after
today, we'll see.
Right.
Even Trump recognizes who's at fault, even if Democrats can't. Maybe Trump can call the Democratic senators in and explain to them that the Republicans screwed up. Give them the same speech. That's all, just so they understand. But the reason I wanted to take it back to Virginia.
Oh, yeah? All right, good. Here I am.
Is because Virginia was making some noise about potentially redistricting themselves.
Yes, and what noise it was.
And in order to do that, you need a few things in place.
Procedure.
Well, you got to have the votes in the House of Delegates and the Senate, right?
Right. And we have.
And the Senate was not up for re-election, but the House of Delegates was.
Mm-hmm.
And what does a 15-point Spamberger win mean? If you think that was bigger than you expected, it really wasn't, because we expected her to do that.
Yeah.
But nobody
Nope.
expected the Spanish Inquisition. Nobody expected a 13-seat swing in the House of Delegates
Yeah.
from 51-49 to, what is it, 64
Yes, something
Democratic
like that.
seats now. That's amazing.
Yep. That's something you can really do something with. The one thing I saw that and I said, well, let's put a dark cloud on it, as occasionally of late, and I think that's going to change now. I think they've got a pretty clear mandate on what they're supposed to be doing here with this election, but it's been sort of counterintuitively the closely divided legislatures that go Dem that have been doing the most, bold, forceful legislating with their slim
But that's
margins.
not surprising at all.
Because
when you have a closely divided legislature, just like with Mike Johnson, you don't want to be the one person that lost
it's explainable.
what you were trying to do. You'll get killed.
Yeah. And I think we can understand. I think usually people say, well, if it's really close, then the non-political folks say, well, I know what the newspaper tells me about when it's closely divided. You have to tack to the middle and look for compromise.
Never.
Actually,
you do
not
the opposite.
case.
You got to stick together, because you'll all hang separately if you don't.
So I guess if you learn that lesson and then you say, well, now there's 64 of them, maybe there'll be defections, except these are all going to be 13 newly elected people who came in on a wave.
Yeah, number one. And number two, you can probably afford a defection or two.
One or two, because you got 13 people to replace them with. These
and
13 are not coming in.
Counting them and saying, okay, you're allowed to vote the other. Nancy Pelosi. But anyway,
that's true.
Getting back to the Virginia Democrats, they have their mandate. They understand what the Republicans are doing. They understand what the country said last night, and they have the numbers to do it. And you have to step back and look at the bigger picture, I think, and say, you know what? Glenn Youngkin was an abject failure at just about everything he was supposed to do as Republican governor of Virginia. Yeah. He's not a presidential candidate. No. He didn't get a whole lot done. He screwed up just about everything. And what he left as his legacy is a 64 Democrat House of Delegates out of 100 who are going to redistrict and make this state even bluer than it is.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So congratulations, Glenn Youngkin. You think Loudoun County went for Trump? Well, you probably thought that Virginia went for you. And guess what, buddy? It didn't.
No. Oh, and did I spend time last night talking to people about Loudoun County? You heard it first here on the show those years, several years ago. And then since then, that, look, was there an underperformance of Democrats in Youngkin's election in Loudoun County? Yes. Was there a nationwide attention focused on Loudoun County? Yes. Was it focused on the reactionary Republican one or two who live here in the county? There are a few. Yes, it was. But everyone you all remember, everyone came away with this impression that Loudoun County was this reactionary, swinging Republican county, and it was never true. Youngkin lost the county. Still, I know it was an underperformance, but he lost overwhelmingly. 11 points is getting crushed. You should have been crushed by 20. You got crushed by 11. It made the anomaly of your election possible, perhaps. But at the same time,
a very close election, by the way.
Yes, and at the same time, and people since then have been like, still the ones I haven't reached yet, still down on Loudoun County. Why? They're gonna ban transgender students from the public schools. They're gonna segregate the bathrooms. They're gonna kick them off the sports teams. No, and no. They never did. Not then. Not since. The county school board is still voting 6-3 to reject the Trump education department mandates.
Earl Sears ran on that and got crushed.
She got,
and I guess my bigger point here is you do not go from 51 to 64 seats without it being in places other than Loudoun, other than Prince William County, other than Fairfax, other than Alexandria. This happened all across Virginia. Otherwise, you don't get to 64.
That is true. Can't do it. And by the way, when we say that Virginia is considering redistricting, so we mentioned that there's a process they have to go through. and it makes a difference what the balance is in the legislature. But it's a tricky process, and they have to jump through like 3 hoops. They had to use their current legislative majority to pass legislation to make it possible to consider putting redistricting on the ballot next time with the current legislature. They did it. And they have to do it again afterwards. Now the margins will be that much
January,
easier.
I think, right?
Yeah. And then they actually have to put the thing on the ballot. And in the middle of all this, by the way, they're floating maps out there. And I don't know how official the maps are, but I have seen, map people who will get into this stuff and try to do, I mean, they do with congressional districting maps what others do with fantasy football. They could do as much as, well, I've seen this map floating around where they're just basically concentrating all of that southwestern tail that you mentioned of the state, which is still very heavily Republican, even though it shifted, and just smashing that all into one giant Republican district and coming up with a map that by voter preference should be 10-1 in favor of Democrats. One
That sounds
Republican
right.
from the whole state in Congress. And it's doable, and it doesn't even require crazy looking districts. It can definitely be done. Will they go that far? I don't know, but the 51 margin House of Delegates said, well, we'll do what we need to do to get the ball rolling. Now we got 64. Are they going to keep rolling, and are they going to roll straight to 10-1? They may. They very well may. And guess what? That turned people out, and the state was flipped on its head yesterday.
Yeah. Well, they have a Mamdate, don't they?
Yes. So, we haven't really talked much about that. That famous
we're gonna
guy.
talk about that next.
All right, great.
There were and I have to say about this, and other people have pointed this out too. If Republicans keep pushing this redistricting all over the place, and saw what happened last night, maybe that dials it back, because they're not going to listen to reason. They're not going to listen to polls, but they do listen to losing.
Yeah. I mean,
Losing
yes,
plus Trump telling them, that is a powerful combo to get a Republican's attention. Even Mike Johnson may hear about it eventually.
Ooh, well, that would be something. But this is a Trump surrender of sorts too, because there was every chance that he was just going to come out and say, "Well, this is all because fraud," and he's not yet.
He said that, but he immediately pulled that back.
Oh, okay.
I didn't
just
know
as
that. He said, "I'm not going to comply with paying SNAP," and
Oh, yeah, right. I know. Believe me, that's another huge story that we have to put aside, at least for the day. But yeah,
we'll do that tomorrow.
So
let's talk about Mamdates.
All right,
so
yay.
Zoran Mamdani, a Democrat, wins the New York City mayoral race. Over 2 million people voted.
Yes.
He brought out the Bengalis. He brought out the Sudanese. He brought out Hispanics, Latinos. He brought out Staten Island. He finished second on Staten Island, ahead of Curtis Lewa.
All right.
Cuomo won. It's the only borough he won. But Mamdani, 2 million votes. There has not been 2 million votes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's going to win him. He got 50.4%. He's going to get 1 million votes. I mean, this is basically, you got to go back to 1969 and John Lindsay.
Who? Yeah.
For this kind of turnout. This is incredible. He brings out people all over the city, gets them involved, gets them excited. And both he and Gavin Newsom had a very interesting victory speech. Newsom appropriately decided to take credit for what happened in California, and Nancy Pelosi's fine with that.
Okay.
And both of them say, in their own words, in their own way, we understand what's going on here, and we will be here to help you who feel anxious about being put upon by this government. Mamdani basically said, you have to go through us to get to you.
Yep.
Mamdani was great in his victory speech in
so I hear
the words of a great New Yorker who he didn't name, who said, you campaign in poetry and govern in prose.
All right.
For those of you who don't know, that would be one Mario Cuomo.
And I remember that guy.
And
what
he
happened to
said,
that
as
family?
for Andrew Cuomo, two things.
Mhm.
Enjoy private life, and this is the last time I will ever mention your name. And to a racist like Cuomo, who had ads running from his pack of Mamdani standing in front of the two towers as they came down, totally appropriate comment. You'd think, well, that's
Sure.
really harsh. You didn't see those commercials.
Yeah.
You saw those commercials, not harsh enough.
No. Very gracious.
Very gracious, in fact, yes. And so he was great. And by the way, okay, fine. He starts out his victory speech invoking Eugene Debs.
I have heard people say
Unusual.
that. I didn't hear what the quote was, but I
Doesn't
don't
matter.
hear speeches. Right. I guess that's the important part. I saw the review of the speeches. I saw maybe one clip or something. Okay, that
Right.
sounds good. Soaring
But-
rhetoric.
But
Very
as
nice.
they say in New York, let me explain something to you.
Oh, okay, please.
Shorehaven Apartments, Muslim rent-stabilized complex in Brooklyn. 2024, Trump 63, Harris 33. 2025, Mamdani 68, Cuomo 23, Sliwa 8.
Yep. Slee was 8 everywhere.
Yeah. Cuomo's endorsement from Trump, Elon Musk, and Stephen Miller, all of whom endorsed Cuomo,
On drugs.
served a purpose. It was to take votes away from Sliwa and give them to Cuomo. Did him no good whatsoever. Just help Mamdani by reminding everybody how much they hate those three.
Yeah.
And Michael Lang, who called this, who said, listen, he's the guy that's going to win the primary. He's also the guy that said he's going to get 50%. And he did. Meta takeaways this morning from Michael Lang. Mamdani improved from the primary among low-income and middle-class Black and Latino voters. Cuomo ran up the score in GOP strongholds like Staten Island.
Yes.
Orthodox enclaves, although Mamdani got part of the Satmar vote, the Haredi vote, and the wealthiest precincts. So calling Mamdani a Nepo baby like Cuomo did, and then Cuomo gets all of the wealthiest precincts, gives you an idea of just what a phony baloney he was.
Yes.
And the Trump to Mamdani voters, and there were many, were working class Latinos, South Asians, and Muslims.
Yep.
And that's what happened. And the Muslim vote was key, and Mamdani including them and saying, you belong, you are part of this. And you know who loved that? The mayor of London.
Oh, yeah? All right.
Himself a Muslim.
To tie it back to Virginia again, as you've mentioned, the lieutenant governor candidate here is now also the first Asian American and Muslim, not only woman in that job, but first Muslim elected statewide in Virginia and the first Muslim woman elected statewide anywhere to anything. So another
we played on Monday the Glenn Youngkin Makaka speech.
Yep, that's right.
And
I don't even want her in the country.
Another fail for Glenn
Holy
Youngkin.
cow. Yep, you bet. And good riddance to you. I'm interested to see how he spends his last month in office, whether he tries to sneak things under the wire and screw things up, or just says, I'm just going to go be a billionaire elsewhere.
New York Times is analyzing the Mamdani race. It's their hometown.
Okay, yes, right.
New York City has the largest Jewish population in the United States, and Mr. Mamdani's critical views of Israel pushed the mayoral race into an unexpected front in debates about anti-Semitism and Jewish safety. That was the key. Mamdani did not spend his time talking about Gaza and Palestine. Everybody else did. Yes. And the debate in New York from the Jewish population was, do I feel safe with this guy?
Yes.
Now, Cuomo won most of those votes, but not all of those votes. And what the Times says, his views, which until recently seemed to be politically untenable positions for a politician in the city, have unnerved many Jewish New Yorkers. In his victory speech on Tuesday, Mamdani, 34, addressed these concerns, telling his cheering supporters, and I quote, "We will build a city hall that stands steadfast alongside Jewish New Yorkers and does not waver in the fight against the scourge of anti-Semitism."
Yeah, he nerved
Politicians all across the country have to say that. Him especially, but everybody has to say that.
And well done
because
there.
you got to fight back against the heritage support of people like Tucker
Oh yeah,
Carlson.
right.
You
can't differentiate yourself from them unless you say, yeah, anti-Semitism is actually taken seriously in this party. It's not a for show thing like it is with Republicans. Fake
Ted Cruz is saying it.
Fake
heritage people are quitting. It remains a big deal. It is splitting the right.
Good,
sure.
fine.
The Groyper Fuentes faction ultimately is going to come out on top because Don Jr. is one of them.
Yes.
And so is Trump, but he doesn't pay any attention to anything except himself. So I'm not saying that this civil war is going to come with the Dick Cheney end of things winning. They're going to lose. They've already lost. But addition by subtraction doesn't work. It's just going to be a smaller and smaller part of it. Yeah. So the Times says his pledge echoed the closed-door conversations that he has had with key rabbis and their congregations since he won the primary. And on Tuesday, some Jewish leaders sought to ease tensions. Union for Reform Judaism, major Jewish movement in the U.S., urged the Jewish community to help lower the temperature, listen generously, and take steps to promote healing in the wake of Mamdani's victory. Reasonable people across the political spectrum and across the Jewish community must aspire to respectfully disagree, and we'll do our part to bring people together. There was caution. Unfortunately, it's the New York Times. Okay, because why do I say that? Their next line, many mainstream Jewish groups responded to his victory with wariness and caution, and then they quote Jonathan Greenblatt of the Anti-Defamation League, a right-wing nut job if there ever was one.
Yeah, he occupies a job that's supposed to make him a mainstream person, but he's not doing it.
Correct. Mayor-elect Mamdani's long disturbing record on issues of deep concern to the Jewish community. In other words, let me just shit stir and make things worse. He's awful. People have to understand the goal of the Anti-Defamation League is good. The current leader of the Anti-Defamation League is bad.
That's the way a lot of people feel about Israel.
Well, yeah.
Now, other people feel that Israel is just bad, period. But
yeah. Now, if you understand that Bibi Netanyahu, his chief advisor, Ron Dermer, and others in Likud are basically right-wing Republicans, you'll understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
They're like the school board you have to throw out, but it takes a while to get there. Greenblatt is one of that crowd. So, yeah, you can make things worse or you can make things better. But Mamdani's taking the right steps. Keeping Jessica Tisch as police commissioner, a moderate, saying he understands anti-Semitism is real and he'll stand against it. Everybody has to go there. He's doing all the right things. We'll see how it goes.
Pretty good. Why don't we could see how it goes tomorrow? You could stay another hour. You probably could fill another hour, too.
I probably could, but I'll save it for tomorrow.
You bet. All right. See you then. Thank you. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. There's so much more to say and do and talk about, and way too much. Let's see, some of the things, some of the windows or the Blue Sky posts that I've opened that I couldn't even shoehorn in, even in this wild and woolly, free-flowing conversation. Random races about which I had not heard anything, but now unsurprising to hear the news, but still exciting. What am I looking at here? The Sergeant Joker, the Sergeant Joker. You remember? I don't know. So Joker wasn't a sergeant in. Is this from Full Metal Jacket? I don't know. Anyway, the Sergeant Joker, SGT, Sergeant, just the abbreviation, who tells us that in Wake Forest, you probably know where that is, but it's a suburb of Raleigh, North Carolina. In case you didn't, the incumbent mayor kowtowed to the scumbag leaders of the Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary and last month rejected a bid to merely recognize the rights of the LGBTQ community to exist in her town. So, what happens? Yes, that's right, she lost. But how so? It says here she was, all caps, crushed 70-30 in her re-election bid. So an incumbent, the advantage is usually built into that, losing 70-30 because they followed the Donald Trump, Winsome, Earl Sears formula. And I guess we can now call it a Glenn Youngkin formula, too, as much as he tried to deny responsibility for it, and got walloped. And it's awesome. So just, that was a note. Let's see. By the way, let me bring this up. This is be something that Greg, I'll predict that when there's more room for it, tomorrow Greg will ask this question. And he doesn't need to because Ringwest has already answered the question. If you were... by the way, if you're still following the story of Adelita Grijalva, yes, it's true, still not sworn in to the U.S. House of Representatives. We are, by the way, on day 36 of the shutdown. This is a brand new record. We've broken all the records very strongly. The previous record was a 35-day shutdown under Donald Trump's administration the first time around. We now have a 36-day shutdown, and quite honestly, no end in sight. Except for the fact that Trump has said, emergency, we have to end this thing. But it'll be really difficult to see how they end it because there's no reason in the world for Democrats to compromise at this point. Although I guess I'll say this. I could see the Angus Kings of the world, except Angus King's vote is already baked in for Republicans in terms of ending the filibuster of, not ending the filibuster period, but ending the filibuster of Senate attempts to bring the House-passed CR back to the floor. Okay. And yesterday's rumor in, like I mentioned quickly in passing with Greg, in the Washington, D.C. political rags, there's many more names that are being floated around that they might actually help end, rather, I don't want to confuse anybody and say end this filibuster because... we'll say invoke cloture on this question of this CR and bringing it to the floor to quickly end the shutdown on an emergency basis. It may be true. They may have been considering it. I think that yesterday's results will make everybody pause, yes. But let me also reiterate that at this point, bringing the House-passed CR to the floor to end the shutdown only ends the shutdown for a very, very short period of time. The plain fact is the House looked to jam the Senate by passing its CR and then leaving town and then staying out so that there can't be any compromise, there can't be any discussion, can't be any negotiation, won't be ping-ponging the bill back and forth to fine-tune it. The House gave the Senate and the country a take it or leave it and then left. And the play has been for Republicans to try to bring the House-passed one to the floor, but they're only doing it half-heartedly. One, they don't care. Republicans don't actually care about the shutdown very much. Now they think they care because Trump is telling them they have to care, and they saw these election results. But ordinarily, Republican senators aren't interested in, particularly in cooperating with the Republican House to get something done. They want to have the Senate drive these things, and they want a more moderate or better tuned CR, even though it's supposed to be a clean CR, to come to the floor. So they're not being super aggressive about it. Anyway, the point is, the point I wanted to get to was that the CR was written, crafted, passed by the House a long time ago, 30-something, I guess coming on 40 days ago at this point. And a CR is a very finite piece of legislation. So what did it say? It said that the funding at present levels will continue until November 21st, which at the time was plenty of room, but now is about 2 weeks away. So that even if the Senate did, in fact, for whatever reason, cave, or Democrats caved in order to, we got to reopen the government, even though there's no reason to believe that that was the message they take away from last night, but it might be the message Republicans take away. So they might try to cut deals. Republicans say, I will do this or that for you, you Democrats, if you 2 to 4 votes that have been voting with us to end the shutdown stick with us. Except now, it's just worth a lot less. You're going to be facing another government shutdown in 2 weeks. Even if you cave right now and pass the House-passed CR, you're going to have another shutdown threatening in 2 weeks. Now, you may say if they cave now and reopen the government, it will be that much easier to get them to cave later on another CR. But if they don't, then it's even more difficult to get them to do that. So let me I wanted to reiterate that. The current House-passed CR is worth less and less as every hour passes. If you've held out 36 days against this thing and there are only 15 left on it, hold out again. I know it's painful. I know it's bad. But I also know that Donald Trump appears to know that it's even worse for them. Let them be the ones that come to the table. Let them be the ones that cave. Bring the goddamn House back into session, right? I mean, really, that needs to be a demand of Democrats in both houses. Listen, I'm not going to help you find a solution to this crisis until you help me find a solution to this crisis. It cannot be done without the House in session. How can we negotiate a settlement between us? I know your point was that there should be and could be no negotiations, but guess what? You just got killed in the elections. You just got crushed in the elections. Where the newspapers saying, look, the only solution here is coming to the table for negotiations and pressuring Johnson to do that. So, of course, he'll say, I haven't seen that article, so it will be no good. Anyway, so just wanted to reiterate that. That wasn't where I meant to go with this. What Greg's going to ask about is, so what about Adelita Grijalva? When is she going to get sworn in, and what's going to happen with the discharge petition to, I'll just say, quote unquote, force the release of the Epstein files? Everybody, the Epstein files! I just want to say that. The Epstein files. Well, yeah, okay, it's still there. And she's still not sworn in. And by the way, it's getting crazy how long the district has been without representation. I did see somebody float the idea, by the way, of a retaliatory strike, that if Democrats were to take back the majority in the House, the next time a Republican is elected in a special election, for no particular reason except for showing you what it's like to have the shoe on the other foot, Democrats might consider holding out and not swearing in the next Republican to win a special election for exactly the same amount of time that they withheld the opportunity to take the oath from Adelita Grijalva. I don't think it really gets us anything, but it is sort of a, well, is that the fighting spirit that everybody said that they wanted so badly and turned out in search of and in support of yesterday? It might be. Talking about it is interesting. Maybe doing it makes some sense. We'll have to see what the situation is then, but it was an interesting thought. Anyway, this is where I thought Greg's question might go. So we have 217 signatures on the discharge petition. And we learned at some point several weeks ago why it has to be 218 signatures on the discharge petition, even if there are fewer members of the House currently, because there are some vacancies still, some, even though we've had the elections to fill them in some cases. But such that 217 actually does represent a working majority of the House members sworn to office at this point. But still, the rule has been interpreted as meaning 218. Adelita Grijalva is that 218th. Does it do anything now that Mikey Sherrill has been elected to the governorship of New Jersey? Does she have to stick around for a little bit longer so that her signature on the discharge petition continues to count? If she resigns to go get ready for the job of becoming governor, are we back down to 216? Question mark, right? I mean, maybe it's not even as big an issue anymore, given that in all likelihood the Trump administration continues to defy the demand that they release the Epstein files anyway. But Ringwist has an answer for you in the form of this periodic reminder that a member's resignation does not invalidate their signature on a discharge petition. How about that? Wow. So, what is it? What's the reminder? It is an excerpt from the May 31st, 1934 congressional record, pointing out with a note at the bottom that, yes, in those days, the threshold for effective execution of a discharge petition was different. It wasn't 218. In fact, it was much lower, 145, which I guess was a different percentage of the House, because I think you were still working with a 435-member House at that point. But they changed the discharge petition rules over time. But they had that debate. And I guess I could read you the transcript of the debate, but we'll just say this. Suffice to say, they've decided that would be the interpretation going forward. They could change that interpretation, I suppose. They could attempt to make that happen. But not with this issue, and not with that razor-thin margin that they've got in the House, and not with the House not being in session either. So there you go. Periodic reminder that a member's resignation does not invalidate their signature on a discharge petition. Result, as Bolt's magazine's account says, is this: Democrat Mikey Sherrill elected governor of New Jersey per the AP. And there you go. So with that in mind, no, her signature does not go away even if she resigns ahead of time. So there you go. I thought that was an interesting bit. We'll see whether we head off the question. If it doesn't, Greg went off. He doesn't always listen necessarily to the second half of the show. He needs to catch his breath and catch up with the things he's been missing for the first hour. Sometimes he's listening, but if not, we'll all wink and nod tomorrow if he asks that question. And well, now we know what he was doing with the second hour. All right, let's see. Other stories on this one I'm going to keep for later. Let me get back into, you know what? I didn't mention Greg. Greg, if you're listening, Dick Cheney died. I'm not laughing at his death. What kind of sicko do you take me for? I'm laughing at the fact that we didn't even have room for that as discussion today. That would have been top news. Well, it was top news yesterday. I did it. Okay. He knows. I got another piece on his death, and I guess I would say I'm not going to share it because there's so much other stuff to do today, but I guess it's kind of an important one, and I think I can fit it, so I might as well do it. I mentioned yesterday that Spencer Ackerman was without a place at the time to publish his Dick Cheney obituary. He had one ready. He's been writing one for 10 years, writing all of his articles and books. They really are all about Dick Cheney obituaries. But as he mentioned yesterday, the situation was such that the one person who had indicated to him that they would commission such a piece, and when they run it, they would pay him, has left the outlet at which it was intended to run. So he was looking for another outlet, and I don't know whether it's a different one than he had in mind, but he has found one in The Nation. So Spencer Ackerman's look yesterday at Dick Cheney. His works completed: Dick Cheney, mass murderer of Iraqis and American democracy, dies. Wow. Okay. Maybe we could do with another dose of Dick Cheney obit. As much as the Trumpists claim to disavow the war on terror, they walk a path paved by the most powerful vice president in U.S. history. Oh, yeah. I think you got it right there, Spencer. Let's do it quickly. This week, or the week before Dick Cheney died, the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel, one of the bureaucratic venues through which the most powerful vice president in U.S. history disfigured the country, good call, informed Congress that it would have no say over Donald Trump's rapidly coalescing military aggression against an oil-rich country, while self-styled War Secretary Pete Hegseth boasted over social media about treating the Caribbean fishermen that he insists without evidence are drug smugglers, quote, exactly like Al-Qaeda. That is to say, treating them exactly like Al-Qaeda. Office of Legal Counsel Chief T. Elliott Gazer told a group of legislators that the administration would not be bothering with congressional authorization. Not going to bother. For an escalating set of strikes carried out as a part of a massive U.S. naval buildup. By the way, another strike yesterday, mostly went unnoticed in all the election results. But it's true and it's there, and we need to note it. In Gazer's sophistry, because the fishermen are unarmed, U.S. personnel are in no danger. They're in moral danger, of course. So there is no war that fits the terms of the 1973 War Powers Resolution. It thus follows, in this backward spooling reasoning, that there are simply no authorities that Congress, the body authorized by the Constitution to declare war, can exercise. We told you this was coming. Our national legislature, controlled by Republicans, nominally, loyal to Trump, and backfilled with Democrats who seek not the end of the U.S. bloodshed, but its constitutionally proper congressional authorization, and that's something to keep in mind, now faces complete irrelevance as the president pursues a policy of regime change in Venezuela and perhaps a wider campaign of regional destabilization emanating from it. Cheney, 84, picked an appropriate time to die. His decades-long struggle to consolidate the unparalleled might of U.S. war-making within the White House has succeeded. In Cheney's view, wrote his biographer Barton Gellman, the president's authority was close to absolute within his rightful sphere, depending on what that may be. Cheney defined that sphere expansively and fought for his definitions aggressively. When Patrick Leahy accused the former Halliburton CEO of rigging gigantic no-bid contracts for that company in Iraq, Cheney responded, "Go F yourself," except without, censoring himself. He later called the exchange the best thing I ever did. Interestingly, by the way, speaking of F-bombs, I don't know. I'll have to see if I can work up this video I saw of a Cuomo supporter reacting to the election results yesterday, trying, by the way, to blame it on Curtis Sliwa for splitting the vote, but as it turns out, mathematically, Sliwa didn't matter to that. Anyway. But look forward to a lot of F-bombs from that one. Anyway, the successor presidencies of Democrats Barack Obama and Joe Biden decried the power grabs Cheney pursued, but mostly pocketed his gains for their own purposes. That's true, and that's the theory that I have long espoused, even from before this show, that presidential power is very difficult or possibly impossible to think of presidential power ratcheting backwards. It's like a toothed gear, a ratchet gear. It goes forward, not backward. But it can be made to go backward. It is possible. We shouldn't lose sight of that. Otherwise, what are we doing here? Anyway, but yes, it should be noted for the record, to be honest, that successor Democratic presidencies did, in fact, decry the power grabs, but mostly pocketed the gains for their own purposes. In his case, for unrestricted bombing in the Caribbean and Pacific, Geiser cited Obama's own marginalization of Congress to bomb Libya, as we mentioned in reading the article the other day, in 2011. Trump now walks a red carpet of lawlessness, plutocracy, and bloodshed, woven by Cheney. An uncharismatic Nixon functionary, someone who might never have risen to power had Texas Senator John Tower not drunk himself out of a Pentagon appointment that instead went to Cheney, decisively shaped the destruction of constitutional governance in the 21st century. It is amazing how some of those inflection points happen, right? I mean, if you're thinking about, for instance, Obama's first election to the Senate, right? In which, what's his name? Ryan. What was his first name? I can't even remember. But Barack Obama was sort of a long shot to have won the nomination in the first place, and then basically was swept into office in the wake of Jack. It is Jack Ryan's. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. No, that's the fictional character. But in a sense, very similar. Jack Ryan's self-destruction through, well, essentially marital and sex scandal, paving the way. I mean, it was still Illinois. It was a pretty good chance that the Democratic nominee was going to win. But, just one of those inflection points. I think that's very interesting to think about from time to time. Anyway, I should stick with Spencer Ackerman's thoughts here. No hell is hot enough or eternal enough for Dick Cheney, in case you were waiting for an obit that would say something like that. We got pretty close yesterday, actually. But here we are. We got some more. Any discussion of his works must begin with the 2021 assessment of Brown University's Costs of War project that found, conservatively, that the war on terror killed between 897,000 and 929,000 people across 5 of its battlefields. Co-director Anita Crawford called that assessment a vast undercount, since it doesn't take into account the downstream casualties caused by the epidemiological effects of destroying the infrastructure of the countries Cheney helped bomb, invade, and occupy. Yeah, that's there. Cheney shares the blame for what is surely the deaths of more than 1 million people, with many others, especially George W. Bush, the president he served. But while Bush was the self-styled decider, Cheney was the most critical or crucial architect of the war on terror and shaped the decisions that Bush made. I changed the structure of that sentence a little bit, but that's the gist of it. Cheney understood the catastrophe of 9/11 as an opportunity to accomplish and cement long-standing objectives. In the early days after the fall of the Soviet Union, Cheney's Pentagon commissioned a study on the future course of American power from Paul Wolfowitz, an advisor who would later enjoy great influence in the Bush administration. The draft document prioritized the active prevention of a peer competitor to U.S. power from emerging. The objective of U.S. grand strategy would be to preserve military, economic, and geopolitical preeminence indefinitely. As he would when he became vice president, Cheney relied on a core of neoconservative intellectuals he cultivated to supply the pertinent rationales. For Cheney, the virtues of dominance were self-evident. After 9/11, they drove him to favor invading not only Afghanistan, but the unconnected country of Iraq, whose regime was an outlier in the world America bestrode. A document contained in an energy task force Cheney convened before 9/11, and that he went to extraordinary lengths to keep secret, detailed, quote, foreign suitors for Iraqi oil field contracts. When Cheney infamously contended after 9/11 that the United States would have to spend time in the shadows, he was not only talking about intelligence work. Cheney accomplished his own agenda as a surrogate chief executive in the bureaucratic shadows. He operated through what former White House attorney Brad Berenson termed a triumvirate of lawyers, most notably his legal counsel David Addington, along with White House counsel Alberto Gonzales and Gonzales's deputy Tim Flanagan. They extended their influence into the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel through Cheney-aligned attorneys John Yoo and Jay Bybee. In the months after 9/11, these Cheneyite lawyers, wielding their boss's influence, created in the shadows an architecture of repression. Addington wrote a draft directive permitting the National Security Agency, in defiance of the Constitution and the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978, to establish a warrantless digital dragnet of phone and internet metadata generated by the communications of practically every American. Flanagan, aided by Yoo, wrote the 2001 authorization for the use of military force that made the world into a battlefield at the direction of the president. They further encouraged and protected the CIA in launching a regimen of torture as geopolitical revenge, masquerading as intelligence gathering, as well as a network of secret prisons to detain the agency's alleged terrorist captives indefinitely. One of the few times I actually made it all the way to fake television, and I say fake television in that it was CNN.com, not CNN, the broadcast channel, to debate that years after the fact, of course, and still years after the fact, facing Democratic operative pushback on whether or not the American people really cared about torture. Anyway, we can get back to that some other time. They declared that battlefield captives could be held as, quote, unlawful enemy combatants. And watch out for that now. That's the same justification they're using to blow up these boats, as a matter of fact. Well, we don't know who they are, but they're unlawful enemy combatants. They were, therefore, deserving none of the protections of the Geneva Convention, and they corralled them without charge into the military base at Guantanamo Bay until an end of hostilities that might never arrive. With the exception of CIA torture and much of the wholesale domestic acquisition of Americans' metadata, these authorities and practices in one form or another persist to this day. Cheney did all of this because his deepest conviction was that the presidency was an elected monarchy. Where'd you hear that lately? Misconstruing an argument of Alexander Hamilton's from Federalist Number 70, Cheney pursued what became known as the unitary executive theory. It was predicated on the idea that an unencumbered presidency empowered to control every aspect of the executive branch, regardless of how any affected office or agency's intended independence from political decisions, regardless of any, affected, office, got it. Cheney had understood the post-Watergate reforms from Nixon's criminal presidency as a congressional usurpation, and he intended to roll them all back, relitigate them all. That's what we said, right? Excluding Congress from wresting any transparency from his secret energy task force was, to Cheney, part of the point. After 9/11, you contended that during wartime, a circumstance conceivably permanent in a war on terror, presidential authority is all but plenary. He likes his argument a lot less now that Trump uses it to murder fishermen in the Caribbean, but, like his Bush administration colleagues, takes no responsibility for authoring the authoritarian usurpations of power that he now bemoans. There's much more, of course. We'll take a quick break of a minute or two, reset, get the voice back, maybe a little bit of extra tea, and see what we can. Well, we got to finish with this thing. This is a blockbuster. Plus, there's more news from around the country. We'll check in with that next. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. Alrighty, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We got another 27 minutes or so to run through. The rest of this has got to get through. The rest of this Spencer Ackerman obit on Cheney. It's important. It's foundational to what we're experiencing now. You know that already, but when people like Spencer put things together this eloquently and coherently, we got to borrow. We got to lean on them because the off-the-cuff stuff doesn't quite cut it. All right, where were we? A fine sentence at the end. John Yoo being mentioned here, and John Yoo, he says he likes his argument a lot less of presidential authority being all but plenary now that Trump is using it to murder fishermen in the Caribbean, but like his Bush administration colleagues, takes no responsibility for having crafted this. Under Cheney, the consolidation of power within the presidency turned out to also be a consolidation of power within the vice presidency, curiously enough. Oh, and by the way, he's the only man for the job, having engineered that as the selection committee. Okay, many understood Cheney, particularly after 9/11, to be effectively a co-president dominating the unprepared and incurious Bush. And you don't even have to do that. You don't even have to be the vice president to do that anymore. You can just be Stephen Miller or what's his name? Russ Vought, for that matter. Cheney was never one content to let events unfold on their own terms. As chairman of Bush's vice presidential search committee, I should have just waited, he nominated himself and pushed Bush to litigate the disputed 2000 election until 5 right-wing Supreme Court justices put them in office. To create the public conditions for invading Iraq, Cheney strong-armed the CIA into delivering baseless analytical assessments, usefully inflating the danger from Saddam Hussein, who turned out to be helpless. By the way, all this is making me think that he was serving drinks to John Tower. Anyhow, In his public remarks, Cheney outdid even the manipulated CIA product, lying profligately about invented connections between Saddam and Al-Qaeda. And then, in fact, I would add, torturing people that he snatched off the street, ICE style almost, in Iraq, in the hopes that they would just say, yes, there's a connection with Al-Qaeda if you stop torturing me. After Cheney got the war he wanted, he continued to lie that the bloody insurgency it provoked was on its last throes. Remember that? Last throes, years before it reached its nadir. That was the other legacy of Dick Cheney. Fiasco. The wars he wanted did not showcase American power. They put on display American weakness, avarice, futility, and manic resource extraction. The economic agenda of unrestrained capital accumulation that Cheney championed led to the 2008 financial disaster that nearly wiped out the global economy. That would have been bad. The pain and bitterness emerging from both conditions would be exploited by Trump, who empowered the nativist political currents galvanized by the war on terror, but during Cheney's time did not enjoy respectability. They also enabled Trump to dismiss the respectable architects of the war on terror, like Cheney, as sybaritic, incompetent elites, even as Trump builds upon their legacy of violence and deceit. For all his claims to foresight, Cheney never expected to be displaced by what he empowered. He surely did not expect to die on a day when New Yorkers are poised to elect a Muslim socialist mayor in a repudiation of his legacy. Trump and Cheney were more characterologically alike than either man would prefer to admit. While Trump is charismatic and Cheney was anything but, they both ruled through fear, cruelty, and domination. Not even Trump has gotten his own friend to apologize after shooting him in the face. The impunity Trump enjoys is another after effect of Obama's decision to forego accountability for the war on terror and its many institutional crimes. All it earned the Democrats was an endorsement from Cheney of Kamala Harris that she seemed not to understand was grotesque and self-discrediting. As Trump prepares an assault on South American field of resource extraction. Got it? As Trump prepares an assault on a South American field of resource extraction and deploys federal forces to terrorize American cities, Cheney can eternally look up from his well-earned spot in the afterlife at the fruits of his labor. All right. Well, you knew Spencer would have a real humdinger to offer you, and so thanks to the nation for giving him a place to publish it, and also hopefully a healthy payment in exchange for it. All right. So many other things to get to today. I got to put this one on the record. I wasn't necessarily going to end up going here, but yesterday was the start of the trial of the guy whose name I can't remember offhand, but who is known in D.C. as the Sandwich Guy, the guy who became virally famous, being caught on video throwing his Subway sandwich into the chest of an ICE officer. And, you know, the name's out there. I don't think that it's all that important, but it's out there, and you should credit him because he's become something of a folk hero to people. But yesterday was the start of his trial, and I want to note for the record, I got to scroll back and see if I can find it. There's a very heavy, very long scroll yesterday because it was a big election day. But there were great reports all day long from out of the courtroom about what was actually going on, because essentially the Trump administration has forced the DOJ to pursue this case. And it was, in fact, a Border Patrol agent, not an ICE agent. A Border Patrol agent who, had to go along with this idea of a federal prosecution here. And remember, I think they couldn't get a felony indictment out of a grand jury in D.C. for this, so they charged him with misdemeanor assault. And now they got to go through with this stupid prosecution, which means they actually have to put somebody on the stand and say, is this the sandwich that hit you? I mean, things like that. It was insane. So here we are. Dave Jamieson was the one whose thread I was watching, a HuffPost labor reporter who was assigned to this case. And as he begins with this, I have to do this because I think we're watching an idiom be born here in the middle of all this, and we have to know the origins of it. Big day at U.S. District Court in D.C. where Sean Dunn, that's the D.C. sandwich guy, is on trial for misdemeanor assault of a federal officer. Border Patrol Agent Gregory Larimore, Lairmore, Larimore is on the stand narrating surveillance video of the Sammy toss. Right. I love it. The offhand slang for the Sammy toss. All right. Quote from Larimore, now, at this particular point, now he struck me with the sandwich, Larimore says. Okay. So, wow. There you go. I got to grab this for inclusion later on at some point. All right. Border Patrol Agent Larimore testifies that he was not injured by the sandwich, as you might have guessed, but he felt the impact through his ballistic vest. Oh, smallest violin in the world for you. The sandwich came apart and, quote, kind of exploded on his chest upon impact, he said. And this is the part. I could smell the onions and mustard. And at this point, we should be cueing is it Ashokan or Ashokan Farewell, the piece that underlay the Sullivan Ballou letter in the Civil War. Like, really? Come on. The sandwich exploded on your chest. I could smell the onions and mustard. It wasn't mustard gas. It was actual mustard. Like, what are you talking about here? Now, what's also interesting is that there's further cross-examination later on that Jamieson describes. I'll just read through the rest of his thread because it's kind of funny. All of it, every minute of this was just worse and worse looking for the administration. Just dumb looking. The poor guy probably did not want to be there. The defense at that point tells the judge that they want to question Larimore about gag gifts that he received from fellow officers after the alleged assault, including a Subway sandwich plush toy and a patch that said felony footlong. Prosecutors object. The defense argues that they reflect CBP's state of mind at the time, and they do. And the questioning has to go forward, and it does, in fact. The defense is, in fact, later on, questioning Larimore on cross-examination. They show a video still of the sandwich and the wrapper on the ground post-throw. Do you recognize that sandwich? The attorney asks. Larimore won't confirm. He would not confirm that it was the sandwich that hit him. I did not go back and collect it, he says. So they don't have any of that in evidence. Now, that's pretty funny all by itself, but there's still more. The defense team presses Larimore on whether the sandwich really exploded. That was your term, exploded. They return to the photo of the sandwich and the wrapper on the ground. That sandwich hasn't exploded at all, has it? The defense asks. Well, it looks like a little bit is coming out towards the bottom, Larimore replies. I'm sure there had to be open laughter in the courtroom at that point. I mean, how ridiculous to have to sit there and say that. That must have been pretty damn embarrassing. There's a bit more. Larimore testifies that the other agents gave him a plush sandwich toy, which he placed on the shelf in his office, and a patch that said, in fact, felony footlong, which he put on his lunchbox. Larimore has chuckled along with the rest of us at times. Defense is really trying to underscore the unseriousness of it all. And I think that's really done it. All right. So he wraps it up about at that point. But it was a point well taken. The big day at the U.S. District Court. All right, so there you have it. And I said that I felt like we were witnessing the birth of a new idiom here. By which I mean I could smell the onions and mustard. I mean, I just offhandedly was saying as the results were rolling in last night, boy, the Republican Party is really smelling the mustard and onions. I reversed the two. Smelling the mustard and onions tonight. And just people just got what that meant and didn't really apply, but it seems to me that, years from now, we're going to come away with this idiom and people are going to say, where did that even come from? Why do we say, oh, I really smelled the mustard and onions on that one? And you'll have been there for the birth of this idiom. I really do think. I intend to make it a thing. I mean, I'm just going to add it to everything at this point. All right. Other things that are in the feed that I really felt like I had to share with you. I'm going to scroll back. There were some great memes on smelling the mustard and onions from that. Let's see. I'll also add the news that Amanda Moore is outside the courtroom of the Dirksen Federal Building, where Greg Bovino will be appearing via Zoom today. So a protest is gathered outside the building. There's a temporary stay on his order to report every evening, but the judge has got him back by Zoom today. That's important, something to keep an eye on. Let's see. Other things I wanted to bring to your attention. Oh, yes, right. I had mentioned Bucks County's ice-loving MAGA Sheriff Fred Harron, if that's the pronunciation, got what he deserved, according to the Blue Sky account of the Bucks County Beacon, who says he deserved a pink slip from the voters, and I guess he got it. So that seems like good news. Sheriff-elect Danny Seisler, Ceisler, 33-year-old Democrat from Bristol Borough, was in many ways the crest of the blue wave that washed away local GOP office holders, according to the editor of the Bucks County Beacon over there. That should be on the record. Let's see. Oh, yeah, right. I mentioned about the women and their turnout. This a reaction to the post from Santiago Meyer saying, wow, 81% of women 18 to 29 voted for Mamdani, 80% for Cheryl, 78% for Spanberger. Gen Z women, he concludes, are not playing around. And additional mention here for George, is it Perks, Pearkes? George notes on Blue Sky in response to that, the solution to the male loneliness epidemic, it's, as it happens, is attending a local Democratic Party canvassing event. So get out there and meet the women if you're interested. And hey, for that matter, lonely Gen Z women who want to meet women could be out there too. True. Good point. Well done there. Let's see. Yes, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Steve M. tells us you're all pissed off about Johnson refusing to swear in Grijalva, but Texas Dem Sylvester Turner died in March, and Greg Abbott has delayed the election to replace him until yesterday. So from March to November, they didn't even have the special election, and then, because no one won a majority, they got to have a runoff, and he'll probably delay the runoff until January. It'll be 10 months that seat has been vacant. So another thing to think about, and I guess a 219th signature that could be on tap for the discharge petition if necessary. I wanted to also point out, as I mentioned, Taniel and Boltz pointing out all of the good news from all over the place, and I think his top line big news from about midnight Eastern time last night was Prop 50 winning in California, Virginia Dems flipping all three statewide elected offices, governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general, flipping 13 seats in the Virginia House, Dems defending the New Jersey governor's seat with Mikey Sherrill, winning the assembly, holding on there. New Jersey and Virginia now both with Democratic trifectas in the governor's mansion and the two houses of the legislature. Mamdani's win in New York. Pennsylvania Dems holding on in the Supreme Court. Maine, where a vote restricting measure was defeated. Georgia Dems flipping the two statewide races that Greg mentioned. And other local elections where DAs were at stake. Krasner in Philadelphia and Bragg in New York, both winning re-election, which is really rather remarkable. And I was, in addition to all these other good news races elsewhere, I wanted to mention the fact that, listen, federal judges read the news too. I sent this out on Blue Sky yesterday, making this point. I want to reiterate it on the radio. They're now going to have, I think, it's not going to change necessarily the way they rule, although in some cases it possibly could, but it can change the nature of the ruling. I think a lot of the judges who are standing up to Trump administration's claims of power to which they are not entitled will now have renewed confidence in the way they approach it, right? And declining to, as I said, entertain weirdo Trump, quote unquote, legal theories. I think that now that they have seen how clearly public sentiment is on their side, that they were correct in their legal reasoning in the first place, now they can speak with some real authority, even if they, if somehow they didn't believe they had that authority before, which they did believe. But now they just feel like they have some backup in all of this. And there's some results to say, I'm not the only one thinking this. It really seems like this is the way the American public wants this stuff to go. And it's because it's right and true. And we're speaking truth to power here. All right. Let's see. A couple other things that I thought we should add. Oh, Daniel's note in passing that Democrats have flipped 2 seats in the Mississippi Senate. Now you might think, well, is that worth anything? Yes. As he notes, in so doing, they've broken the GOP's supermajority in the chamber. It's not like they came close to controlling it, true, but when, a supermajority in Republican hands is a dangerous thing. And it wasn't going to change the nature of Mississippi politics per se, but it's going to make some political plays in Mississippi difficult for Republicans. Important point. All right. Let's see. A couple other great things. Oh, here's that video I want very badly to play for you on here, but this thing is going to have to be bleeped extensively. It's very funny. And I should probably try and see if I can find out who the hell this is. Anyway, what can I tell you? Lots of other things to round up. Let me head back to Instapaper here and see what else is top of mind. We got to get to this. Greg was mentioning we'll get to it tomorrow about the flip-flopping and whiplash coming out of the White House and the administration on SNAP payments and court orders insisting that they begin, and a number of other things. But let's see, other things that were on hold since yesterday. Let me add this to the mix, since I mentioned to you about judges ruling with renewed confidence before any of these results happened. We had the AP's report from this would have been Sunday, from out of Portland, Oregon, where the AP reports judge again bars Trump administration from deploying troops to Portland. So they're hanging on and trying to do their best here. Claire Rush and Gene Johnson for the AP report out of Portland. A federal judge in Oregon barred President Donald Trump's administration from deploying the National Guard to Portland until at least Friday, saying she, quote, found no credible evidence that protests in the city grew out of control before the president federalized the troops earlier this fall. The city and state both sued in September to block the deployment. It's the latest development in weeks of legal back and forth in Portland, Chicago, and other U.S. cities as the Trump administration has moved to federalize and deploy the National Guard in city streets to quell protests. The ruling from U.S. District Court Judge Karen Immergut, we're back in Immergut's court here, a Trump appointee, followed a 3-day trial in which both sides argued over whether protests at the city's U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement building met the conditions for using the military domestically under federal law. In a 16-page filing late Sunday, Immergut said she would issue a final order on Friday due to the voluminous evidence presented at trial, including more than 750 exhibits. The purpose of the deployment, according to the Trump administration, is to protect federal personnel and property where protests are occurring or likely to occur. Legal experts said that a higher appellate court order that remains in effect would have barred troops from being deployed anyway. Immergut wrote that most violence appeared to be between protesters and counter-protesters, and found no evidence of significant damage to the immigration facility at the center of the protests. Based on the trial testimony, this court finds no credible evidence that during the approximately 2 months before the president's federalization order, protests grew out of control or involved more than isolated and sporadic instances of violent conduct that resulted in no serious injuries to federal personnel, she wrote. So that all, by the way, under the subject header of Judge says claims of protest violence are overstated. This next section, ruling follows weeks of back and forth in federal court. Here's that part of the story. The complex case comes as Democratic cities targeted by Trump for military involvement, including Chicago, which has filed a separate lawsuit on the issue, seek to push back. They argue the president has not satisfied the legal threshold for deploying troops, and that doing so would violate states' sovereignty. The administration argues that it needs the troops because it has been unable to enforce the law with regular forces, one of the conditions set by Congress for calling up troops. Immergut issued 2 orders in early October that blocked the deployment of troops leading up to the trial. She previously found that Trump had failed to show that he met the legal requirements for mobilizing the National Guard. She described his assessment of Portland, which Trump has called war-ravaged and with fires all over the place, as simply untethered to the facts. One of Immergut's orders was paused October 20th by a 3-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, but late Tuesday, the appeals court vacated that decision and said it would rehear the matter before an 11-judge panel. That's their version of en banc rehearing. Until the larger panel rehears the case, the appeals court's initial order from early October, under which the National Guard is federalized but not deployed, remains in effect. Next, federal witness describes surprise at troop deployment. During the Portland trial, witnesses, including local police and federal officers, were questioned about the law enforcement response to the nightly protests at the city's ICE building. The demonstrations peaked in June when Portland police declared one a riot. The demonstrations typically drew a couple dozen people in the weeks leading up to Trump's National Guard announcement. The Trump administration said it has had to shuffle federal agents from elsewhere around the country to respond to the Portland protests, which it's characterized as a, quote, rebellion, or, quote, danger of rebellion, at least, but they've used both. Another one of the conditions for calling up the troops under federal law. Federal officials working in the region testified about staffing shortages and requests for more personnel that have yet to be fulfilled. Among them was an official with the Federal Protective Service, and the agency within the Department of Homeland Security that provides security at federal buildings, whom the judge allowed to be sworn in as a witness under his initials, RC, due to safety concerns. RC, who said he would be one of the most knowledgeable people in DHS about security at Portland's ICE building, testified that a troop deployment would alleviate the strain on staff. When cross-examined, however, he said he did not request troops and that he was not consulted on the matter. He also said he was, quote, surprised to learn about the deployment and that he did not agree with statements about Portland burning down. Attorneys for Portland and Oregon said city police have been able to respond to these protests after the police department declared a riot on June 14th. It changed its strategy to direct officers to intervene when person and property crime occurs, and crowd numbers have largely diminished since the end of that month, police officials testified. Another Federal Protective Service official, whom the judge also allowed to testify under his initials, said protesters have at times been violent, damaging the facility and acting aggressively toward officers working at the building. The ICE building closed for 3 weeks over the summer due to property damage, according to court documents and testimony. The regional field office director for ICE's enforcement and removal operations, Camilla Walmsley, said her employees worked from another building during that period. The plaintiffs argued that that was evidence that they were able to continue their work functions, which I guess they were. Oregon Senior Assistant Attorney General Scott Kennedy said that, quote, without minimizing or condoning offensive expressions or certain instances of criminal conduct, none of these incidents suggest that there's been a rebellion or an inability to execute the laws. That's basically it. And that's causing the problem. And it's causing even Trump judges to say, I just don't see the case for it here. And to the extent that they might have worried that Trump would rally public opinion against them somehow, he's got a very small and narrowing slice of the population. He'll be able to move to that sort of anger, I think, especially in the wake of yesterday's elections, where they are Biden-appointed judges or otherwise, doesn't even really matter, but still ruling against Trump. They must have felt a certain pressure, which I believe that they will find has been alleviated to some extent today as a result of yesterday's elections and as a result of learning the results of yesterday's elections. Okay, time now for us to wrap these things up and hand things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We should not get into any other stories, but there are plenty to get to. It's going to be a fun couple of days, I think, digesting everything that's happened and catching up with all that's happened, which there'll be a different spin, I think. We'll see some of these stories in a slightly different light. But which stories will they be? Well, I can't tell you that for us, but I can tell you what Justice Putnam has on tap for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy next. And here's how it goes. Let's see, top line here. Fox state regime media lost it on live television over the massive election rejection of Trump and MAGA. So we'll be spending some time on that, focusing. You'll be interested to hear that. And then stay tuned because there's more. Trump ousted the Inspector General of the U.S. housing regulator involved in the Pulte-led mortgage probes of his foes. That's been waiting in our Instapaper queue. So I'm glad that Justice will get to that today. Trump's top immigration goon has been accused of inventing a rock attack to justify the use of tear gas, then lying about it in court. And you're not supposed to do that. And Oregon is suing the Trump administration over $17.9 million in grant funding the state uses for emergency preparations and domestic security. I thought they were in favor of domestic security in the Trump administration. So more action in the courtroom in Oregon against the Trump administration. How do you like that?
From networksradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Wild stuff internationally, too. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has pressed charges against a drunk man who harassed her, the president, in the street near Mexico's seat of government, saying it was an assault on all women. And Pope Leo called for deep reflection about the treatment of detained migrants in the United States. That's tough stuff from a pope.